Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, no. No.
Oh, it's not over.
Oh,
Bro, could you imagine?
Where is your sense of direction? He's gonna hit the trash can. It's one final resolution. Oh my gosh. Dang.
I mean, wow.
Golly. The
Right.
fact that she didn't hit that trash can was kind of impressive.
Wait, we gotta get rid of the audio here. All right, wait. All right, so we're gonna have major technical issues tonight, guys, because Rob's not here. So, like last time, we couldn't figure out the audio, right? And this time, what Nick and I figured out in the green room is that if I just play the audio directly from my computer speakers, we'll be able to actually hear things, but it's going to be very choppy tonight.
I have no. I'm Gen Z. I should like figure this stuff out.
So Rob couldn't make it tonight because he's getting his kids ready to go on their first fishing trip. But part of me thinks it might be because of all my spousal abuse comments. Spousal discipline. Spousal discipline comments today. So we have clips of Trent Horn and Pearl, and I don't know if I loaded that one. I might have to just play that one right from my phone. So there was some interesting things that went on in that conversation, but one of them was they were talking about discipline and disciplining your spouse, or husbands disciplining their wives. And it's actually interesting with Trent. I want to hear what your opinion is as a single guy and just see. I'll just play the audio of it. Let's see. Hang on.
All right. And you agree to this, do you agree that men should be able to discipline their wives?
I don't know what that means. From the outset, when I hear that, that sounds very pejorative, like you're treating your spouse like a child. I think that husbands and wives should treat each other like people, like adult people. And so if you have a disagreement, you can set boundaries, you can communicate, you can discuss. But if you treat your spouse like a child, if you treat your spouse in a similar way you treat a child, you probably have a dysfunctional relationship.
Okay. I have so much to say here. I'll ask your opinion in a minute. But I want to know why he associates discipline, the word discipline, with not treating your spouse like a person. Like I related it to something like this, like because I know this situation in many marriages where the wife is a little out of control with the Amazon account and they come home every day and there's packages on the front lawn or on the front stoop. And I talk to guys that go through this, might be one of my brothers, I'm just saying. And it's just the nonstop packages. Now, if that was happening in my home, I would take my wife's credit card away or remove her Amazon account. And I would say, excuse me, this is not going to continue. This is done. Like discipline doesn't mean, it doesn't mean physical abuse. It doesn't mean capital punishment. It just means discipline. Like I'm going to take actions to curtail this behavior. That's it. It doesn't. And I would think a husband absolutely has an obligation to do that with his wife, because women do tend to do crazy things at times where the husband might have to step in.
Yeah, it was I think he probably gets confused with the word discipline because like when you hear the word discipline, you're often thinking of like spanking children or putting them in timeout or something like that. And so probably where his mind went is where mine
I said capital instead of corporal. You're right. I'm sorry, Tyler. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think it's like the term discipline when you're relating it to someone who's an inferior. So that would be in the case of like children, right? When they're little, corporal discipline makes sense. With a spouse, though, you are their equal in the sense of like dignity, even though you have headship in the family. And so I think when it comes to discipline, the word discipline kind of has a nasty connotation, perhaps just from all of our upbringings. And so that's why I don't know if there's a better word for it, but in general, just to answer your question, I think that there is a certain right, I think that the husband does have where if his wife is being very flippant with money and just running around with it, and he's had those conversations, especially with her, where it's like, hey, we can't be doing this. This is not good for the finances, not good for the house. And she continues to do it. I think rationally, you should have that conversation. Be like, I need to take this away.
I'm going to say something super controversial. And I
Really?
know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for this. But if your wife gained a lot of weight, I think that you as a husband would be able to say to her, I think you need to go on a diet. Now, I think that's controversial because it's the husband saying it to the wife. But I know tons of wives that will tell their husbands, what are you eating? Why are you eating that? Don't eat that. Don't eat that. You're going to get fat. You're going to get fat. It's strange how that conversation could go towards the husband and nothing is thought of it. But if a husband dares to suggest his wife is gaining too much weight, that becomes like this, holy cow, I can't believe you had the audacity to say something like that. But I think because a lot of the conversation Pearl and Trent had, so my wife actually listened to Pearl's opening statements tonight from the Pints debate, and I was like, I want to see just what you think of it. And she's like, I don't know, she's got a lot of good points there. She was just talking about how modern women will marry a guy where a guy 100 years ago could expect 4 kids, and they'd have an intimacy regularly, things like that, where now women, they have 2 kids, they gain 50 pounds, there's no intimacy in the marriage, things like that. And I mean, she's generalizing like crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that even though she does, like, my issue that I always take with when the conservatives talk to her is that they don't concede the points that she gets correct.
Yeah,
she makes a lot of correct points. Her solutions are ridiculous and absurd, and it's, that should be called out. But it's okay to concede to her that, yeah, this is a lot of modern marriages, especially like non-sacramental marriages where the couple is not taking their faith seriously. I'm talking like most of the marriages I know, it is a husband who has that mentality of, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I got to do to keep her happy. And they don't sleep together anymore. And it's just a nightmare for the husband, So, I mean, those points, my wife was listening to Pearl and she's like, yeah, she makes a lot of good points. I couldn't imagine living in a marriage like that.
Yeah, I actually think you summed it up kind of nicely. I didn't even know they were going to be having a debate, but I clicked it on today because I saw it in the feed. And yeah, I caught her I think like 3/4 of her opening statement. She's really, really good. She goes in there. It's kind of like boom, 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 boom. Here's all the basically travesties that have happened to men. But then what I think you're absolutely right. Her final solution then to all of that is garbage. Just basically go full black pill on marriage. And I think Trent Horn did a really good job in his opening statement calling her out in the sense that he said that she gives a lot of platitudes and a lot of basically circumstantial evidence, whereas he was just like ripping off statistics from memory, including statistics she would give. She was like, I think she's citing this statistic, but here's the rest of the study that basically debunks her whole platform.
She gets very flustered as soon as you challenge anything she says. I mean, you can tell she's just saying that. And there was one point where Matt said to her, like, well, why don't you try to encourage women to be more marriageable instead of what you're doing? Well, because she's and there's a ton of guys giving her money to hear her talk about how crappy women are. I mean, that's legit what she's doing. She's just talking about, because in a way she's right. Feminism has destroyed a lot of women, and there's a lot of young men who are fed up with it. So listening to a woman confirm what they already think is very lucrative. So she's never going to drift.
No, 1000%. And that's why I think that, in a way, she actually kind of becomes that what she's fighting against, where it's just like she's not willing to just admit when she's wrong and actually conform to reality. So that's why. But then I agree with you on the flip side. I think that Trent Horn didn't concede enough to the real problem that young men do have. And that's one thing that's kind of like, you don't have to make it an either or. You can agree with her and says like, yeah, it's horrible. And he kind of did when he said that in his opening statement that society's gotten worse for young men and for young women. And I would agree with that. I would have maybe explored and gone into that more. But yeah, her overall solution doesn't work. And she kind of becomes that what she's fighting against, because she's fighting against feminism. But then at the same time,
and giving feminist solutions.
Exactly. But she's like built this whole business now of like getting lonely men's money, which
Well, she put herself in a position where even if she meets a guy, she's stuck being the breadwinner. I mean,
exactly,
she's
yeah,
making a ton of money doing what she's doing. She's going to have to continue doing what she's doing, right? So I'll
exactly.
disagree with this, right? So am I wrong for thinking Pearl is out of her elements and she's not married, which I think invalidates her opinions? No, I don't think it invalidates her opinions. I'm talking to Nick about this. Nick's not married. I actually kind of think it's good that I'm talking to Nick because he brings the perspective of a young guy in this arena where I'm a married guy. I have no idea what it's like in that field, where I don't think it invalidates her opinions. The weight thing I know is a touchy subject, and and I understand as we get older, it's hard to maintain your weight from when you're younger. But I also
Mhm.
know that even my wife, if I'm overeating, she'll get on my case about it. But if I ever said to her, "What are you getting in the cabinet?" she'd be so offended. She really would. It's like, wait a minute, you can say it to me, but I can't say it to you. It's very strange how we have to be so careful. But I think Trent was having a hard time with the word discipline because it sounded mean, but I
Yeah,
almost don't think he would disagree with the statements I'm making about how that discipline, right? Like I think he was just so worried that whoa, discipline, that now you're not treating her like an equal, but that's crazy. Yes, you are. But
yeah,
you're just living out your role as the authority in the home. And sometimes, look, to pretend that women don't do crazy things that need to be reined in at times is just silly. I mean, they do. They need to be reined in at times. It's like, calm down. I got to take your credit card away, or I got to, you can't go and do that thing you want to do. You've been doing that too much. Drinking. Say your wife is drinking too much, and like, no,
mhm.
you have to stop drinking. Knock it off. There's things that you have to do as a husband, and it doesn't mean you look at your wife as less than.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it just gets kind of weird because that term discipline, I think, just has like like a corporal punishment connotation in most people's minds. It kind of actually reminds me this whole discussion. It's nothing new. Like Muhammad, actually, we're going through our Islamic series on being Catholic, and I'm going to get into a little bit about this in a few weeks. But Muhammad, like when you look at his treatment of women, he actually has a whole discussion in both the Quran and the Hadith talking about basically like disciplining wives. And in the Quran, he goes so far as he gives like a 3-step process. He's like, yeah, don't talk to them, then like remove them from the bed, like banish them from the bed, I think is the term. And then he prescribes, and I think this is chapter 4, like actually physically beating their wives. Absolutely crazy,
Yeah.
wild stuff. So much so that the Quran, when you get into the Arabic, actually says like, even to the greening of their skin. So like their bruised skin becomes green. Modern Islamic apologetics on that's hilarious. They actually believe that that can be interpreted as to tap her lightly with a toothbrush. Wild nonsense. But in the Christian context, it's like, okay, well, you can't beat your wife. Like there's nothing I think more unmasculine
Yeah.
than attacking a woman. Like self-defense is one thing, but like beating your wife, that's not what Christ does at all, to the church. And so therefore, but Christ does have to chastise us sometimes. And what that can mean is like, hey, you can't be going out and doing this stuff because it's going to
Yeah.
be
So
your
why
ruin.
is it offensive to say a husband has to discipline his wife, but it's not offensive when we say, well, God disciplines his children, even if they're adults, right? Like
Yeah.
God
I,
disciplines his children. You fall into sin and bad things happen to you. That's God disciplining you. Why is that not wrong? But to say that a husband needs to discipline his wife on occasion is wrong.
Yeah, I think it probably just comes back to like what people think about when they think of the term discipline. Because it's like when I think of discipline, I think about like my mom and dad disciplining me as a kid, right? We got spankings, we got the belt, we got timeout, we got all kinds of stuff. Old school world, like kids nowadays don't get nothing. And I think it was healthy. But see, here was the thing though. My parents always told me how much they loved me and explained to me why I was doing the thing that was wrong. In like manner, I don't think it's wrong for a husband to correct his wife and to show her why. But I think that when we use the term discipline, it's all of a sudden like uber offensive. I would actually argue that people, particularly in the Protestant world, they don't even like the term God disciplining people because they think, hey, look, Christ already took all the punishment. So there you go. Do what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. All right. Let's play one more clip from that thing. Let me see. I got another one. I forgot what it was. All right, let me see. You guys got to bear with me tonight. I'm not Rob. This is we're gonna
Everyone,
go.
everyone smash that like button for
Yeah, guys, hit
all
like,
the-
subscribe. You guys know. All right, here we go.
Do you think that women should be obedient to their husbands?
Yeah, I think that they should be obedient to their husbands when their husbands give them a rational request or directive. But I think that husbands and wives should lead each other to Christ and to the goodness of their family.
Okay, so sure.
Do you think?
Wait, all right. So sure. Husbands and wives should lead each other to Christ. But that's kind of like he was kind of backing off the husband, like wives should be obedient to their husband. It's this whole mutual submission thing that I really think. I mean, I don't know. I just think people are so sensitive and get so easily offended these days by just the idea of the husband being the leader in the home. It's a strange thing. Like, no, I lead my wife. I lead my children. Like I am the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope. I am the secular and the religious authority in my home. That's not something I'm lording over my wife like she's my slave. But I mean, if you really think about it, like I am the vicar of Christ in my home. Like my wife should obey me as if my words are the words of Christ. I mean, that is what Scripture says. I mean, that sounds hard to hear for some people, but that is actually the case.
Yeah, and that's where I think that, again, it's like you have to presume even in that in response you're going to love her as Christ loves the church, and that's where the whole thing is. It's tough because, so it's like, again, from that brief clip of Horn, I would say, that term, like leading each other to Christ, there's a little bit of ambiguity in there because it can kind of give the connotation of mutual submission. He might just be using the term like loosely in like English, just like pointing each other to Christ, and that's all good. But yeah, the mutual submission thing, I think it's very ambiguous because it does give the connotation that women can lead men to Christ in a kind of a headship way. Whereas I think rather what mutual submission is talking about is just like wives submit to their husbands, and then husbands like already, but just in response to that, of course, love their wives, as Christ loves the church. Like that's what kind of that mutual submission should mean.
Me and my wife were talking earlier about this, and we were kind of looking back on our marriage. Like we had a couple of rough years, and those rough years were when I was away from the sacraments, but she was too. Because when I stopped going to the sacraments, my wife and kids stopped going as well. And those years where I was away from the sacraments, like my headship got so distorted that she almost did not want to submit to anything I was doing, because it was just, you think about what you're doing when you're not attending the sacraments, the things you're looking at, just the way my whole life was going. And it wound up leading to this tension in my marriage. Now, ever since I went back to mass, which was probably like 2016, it's the difference in my home is so unbelievable, because it just, even living out a sacramental life, orders your spiritual life, orders the way you do everything. And it changes the way you view your role as father and husband. And it's almost like her role of submission, it's like she was waiting to fall into that role this whole time, but she couldn't, because I was so disordered when I was away from the sacraments, which kind of leads me to kind of think, should the church and sacramental marriage be separated from civil marriage, do you think?
What do you mean? Kind of expound on that.
Man, like they started talking about this when they introduced same-sex marriage, right? So where if the state ever tried to force the church to witness these, right? And the thing is, because I've been hearing Andrew Wilson talk about this a lot, should we be encouraging people towards civil marriage? Meaning, like I have family members who have children out of wedlock and are basically concubines because they're living with their boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And should I be pushing them to, because what they would have would be a civil marriage. It would not be a sacramental marriage. Should I even be pushing them towards that when the outcomes will likely fall into what Pearl is criticizing. They'll be in the 49% of divorce rate, things like that. Like that marriage is a civil marriage is not a valid marriage. It's not sacramental. It's not going to be leading them towards heaven. The only positive outcome from a civil marriage I could see is children end up better when they come from a civil marriage. But are we encouraging people to do something that is just going to be destructive to them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so like I think how St. Thomas actually would answer this question, he would say something to the effect of, evil is defined as like the negation or the absence of some good that should be present. And the reality is that Christ raised marriage to the level of a sacrament. Now, marriage in and of itself, right, can obviously be non-sacramental. So like someone can legitimately go down to the courthouse, right, two people and get married, right? Okay. However, the thing is like, is that good? Well, in one sense, there's good there, but in another sense, there's evil there because it's lacking that sacramental aspect. So probably what I would do is I would always err on the side of caution. I would point people to the sacramental marriage. Now, if they're not Catholic, if they don't believe anything at all, let's just say they're two atheists or something, I would at least just point them. I would still try to point them to the truth, but I would at least try to convict them and say, look, like if you guys are going to be shacking up, get married, make that commitment to one another, because that's true on a natural level. And then therefore, like the children in that relationship are bound by your oaths to be like reared and protected by you. If that makes sense. It kind of
No, it does.
To answer
So
Caitlin's question, I am Rob. So.
yeah, Rob's taking his kids fishing tomorrow. It's funny because I canceled the show yesterday because I had to work a night shift last night. And I was like, let's just cancel the show this week. We'll jump on Tuesday or something. And Rob goes, no, let's do a Friday. I can do a Friday. And then he bailed on us.
Were you having to put in a moat last night at the castle?
No, we were putting in just do a regular road work. I wound up jacking up a car and the car slipped off the jack and it went through some guy's oil pan. But I want to stay on the marriage thing for a second because man, this is what it was. So Trent made the comment that because they were arguing, Pearl was saying, I don't want to discuss Christian marriage. I just want to discuss civil marriage. And Trent was like, well,
yeah.
That's good because marriage is a human institution and it predates Christianity and all this stuff. And I almost like to push back on that because marriage in the way we understand it today is very Christian. You look to the Muslim world and they believe in polygamy, like a man can have multiple wives. It's not, and even in the Old Testament, Solomon had how many concubines and wives and stuff?
It's like 2,000 concubines, 700 wives, I think it was. Crazy.
Right.
Number.
So it is Christ who raises it to a sacrament, right? So, but we're just in such a post-Christian world that all of us just presume that marriage is between one man and one woman. And it's always been that way, but no, it really hasn't. So the idea that we're pushing people towards civil marriage, I don't know if we're better off just separating the sacrament from civil marriage totally, not getting married in the eyes of the state at all, and just having the sacramental covenant and just let the church itself deal with our union. And if you want to get a divorce, there's no such thing as divorce. You get an annulment or you're married forever. And even the annulment process is such a crazy thing right now, but there's no societal pressure to keep a marriage together because it's more acceptable to get divorced these days. I just think that there's a case to be made that we should just keep it as sacramental and in the eyes of the church.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess I would say this. I would agree with Trent Horn in the sense that it is something of nature, because when you look at Matthew 19, our Lord does talk about how basically the Pharisees are like, yo, why can't we get divorces, more or less, because Moses gave us a bill of divorcement. And he says, well, since the beginning, this was not so. God made them male and female. A man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife. They shall be one flesh, etc. So it is true. Like God did establish it, but it goes all the way back to the beginning. But with the original sin introduced in the picture, man's concupiscible passions just blew up. I mean, it's so hard for us who like have been born, particularly here in the West, with sin everywhere, just to understand how insane original sin is. Because just think about this, humor me to be a nerd for a second. Like Adam and Eve, they had this gift called original justice. So they were right in God's sight, but they also had a gift called integrity, the gift of integrity, which meant that they knew everything that a human being should ever know, right? And they had full power over every movement of their passions, right?
Wow.
So when Adam decided to sin, it wasn't like, I don't know, Eve kind of just dragged me into this, bro. I didn't know what I was doing, right? He fully accepted Satan. That's what he literally did. So what happened as a consequence of that is God said, okay, you lowered your dignity down to a piece of fruit. Well, I'm going to allow your passions to rule over you. So what do you see? The pagan world, therefore, blows up, and you see like women are treated like slaves. People practice slavery, murders everywhere, hedonism, idolatry, all kinds of stuff. And then when Christ comes into the picture, right, he says, okay, yeah, back in the day, God allowed a dispensation for the hardness of your hearts. You guys didn't have grace. Like your hearts were hardened.
Yeah.
But now I have come and I'm raising it to the level of a sacrament. Therefore, to answer your question, what I would say is, so there's a good in, I would say, the civil marriage, in the sense that like you can have a valid marriage outside of the church. And I think that that's better than just telling people, shack up, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's not what you're saying. But I think, yeah, the ultimate goal would be, I wouldn't necessarily discourage it, but I would always point people to the church. If they're Catholic, they need to be married in the church,
Yeah,
because
of
if they're
course.
not, it's a mortal sin.
Yeah.
If they're not Catholic, then it's like, okay, well, I would still try to point them to that in the end. But also, if they're
Yeah.
already going to get married, then get married.
Yeah, I think the only way forward is to actually just convert people. It's the only answer to it. Because even so, he said, Confessions of a Convert. This basically leads to a practical separate. I think that's Jeff, right? I'm pretty sure that's Jeff. This basically leads to a practical separation of church and state in regards to marriage. Marriage is a pillar of society, not just a spiritual realm, which I understand, right? So I haven't really thought this through, guys. Don't think I'm pushing this idea. I figured Nick was a good guy to like hammer out these. So because I've been hearing this conversation come up a lot with like Andrew Wilson and all these different, he talked to Lauren Chen the other day, and Lauren Chen was talking about marriage, and he's like, so you're encouraging people to sin, but I don't think that's really what's going on. And I know the church actually views civil marriage as a natural good, and especially because it's for the good of the children. So I don't think the argument is as simple as Andrew was making it. He was just trying to win an argument against his opponent, which I get also. His name's Murray. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to, you know what it is? I don't like to take a position on something until I actually learn a little bit about it. So I'm just fleshing out an idea here with you guys. I really don't know the theology behind why we believe that. I'm just seeing the consequences of what we're dealing with in society right now. And I'm seeing 50% of marriages are falling apart. So I would say, man, if you do get married and if you're a man, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing changed my life more than taking my faith seriously and living a sacramental life with my family and getting filth out of my, just stop watching filth. It changed my life. Like it actually did. It changed everything. It was the crux of my marriage going for, let's put it this way. When I wasn't going to the sacraments, I remember constantly being annoyed at what my wife wasn't doing for me. And she would be annoyed at what I wouldn't do for her. Where now, we were just talking about this. It's like, she always is looking for ways that she can be a good wife to like show me what a good wife she is. I'm always looking for ways to be a good husband and show her what a good husband I am. And when you have that attitude where you're not looking at what has the other one done for me, but what can I do for the other one, it changes the whole dynamic of your marriage. Like you both go in just looking to lay your life down for the other to make them happy, and they wind up in turn doing that for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, what you say reminds me, actually, there's this passage, I think it's in the book of Hosea. I think it's chapter 4 or chapter 6, but basically God says, like, in the land, there is a massive drought for not hearing the word of God. And as a result, there's adultery everywhere, lying, stealing, murder, etc. And all the traditional catechisms basically talk about how if the Catholic faith is not being practiced in a nation, and if the nation doesn't recognize Christ as king and then therefore impose Christ's morals and laws into civil law, then the society is going to basically, be a hellhole, and it's gonna suffer. And when you think about it, it's like marriage it's the cornerstone of just nature, right? I mean, literally everything else does not come if marriage doesn't exist. So therefore, it makes sense that the devil would attack that the most. And whether that is attacking it through redefining it, which is I think what a lot of us kind of think about today in the political context, or in just things like, okay, well, through liberal philosophy, now the wife is the new head of the house, and they're both heads, and they can both lead each other around in that context. I mean, it's all garbage. And so you're right.
Well,
Everyone has to go back to the faith.
When Sister Lucia said the final battle will be over marriage and the family, I think all of us immediately think, okay, well, look how they're redefining marriage and all the examples you just gave, which is 100% true. But it's also the battle for Christian marriage.
Yeah, just
so
being
like
Christian marriage.
The devil is trying to really cleaver between Christian spouses, especially ones that are living sacramental life. Like there's nothing that makes the devil happier than ripping apart a good sacramental marriage, man. It's wild. Dude, did you see the all right, we're gonna switch gears. Did you see this clip of the nun? I don't know if it's a movie or a documentary. These nuns hearing about Vatican II, the changes in Vatican II.
No.
Oh, you are going to love this. This is
okay.
Dude, you are going to love this. I don't know if this is a movie or a documentary about the council. You are going to freaking bug out when you see this.
Why do I feel like I'm gonna flip?
Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, can you hear it?
It's kind of faint, a little faint.
All right, hang on. Let me see if I can fix the volume. All right, wait. Man. All right, I might have to play this audio from my phone, but I'll try to time it so that, because the audio is very low. All right, let me see if I can time it to where you're hearing the audio while watching the video. Hang on.
Confessions of a Convert, he says that it comes from a movie called Rebelling, and it's about a bunch of lesbian nuns. What?
Okay, let's see.
I'm not
All right,
surprised.
but either way, you're still going to like this clip. So
yeah, I'll probably get pissed.
Okay, how am I going to do this at the same time? Let's see. I'm going to hit play.
God gave you two hands for a reason.
All right, ready?
Please be advised that priests are no longer required to read the liturgy in Latin and should face the congregation during Mass. All Catholics are further encouraged to embrace the idea of full religious tolerance. While we may not share the same beliefs as others, we will honor and respect each and every individual's belief as their own. Please be advised also that all nuns and women religious, cloistered and non-cloistered, are no longer required to wear the traditional habit as a symbol of their lifelong matrimony to Christ. In fact, they are now free to wear what they want. Regarding the culture of more extreme abnegation and self-punishment, still prevalent in many communities today, please be advised that according to the Council, this is no longer understood to be the appropriate path to follow for all those seeking greater union with Christ. It is no longer acceptable to view any acts of extreme sacrifice as an act of love. Finally, from here forward, in the eyes of both the Holy Church and God, the status of all nuns shall be reduced as equal to that of any regular practicing Catholic, while the choice to enter the convent is one's own. This does not necessarily make nuns any more beloved or special in the eyes of God. I am deeply sorry, sisters. Have a pleasant day.
Man, what do you think of that? That's pretty wild, right? So, yeah, I don't know. So, wait, people are saying, all right, it's not called rebelling, it's called novitiate, I think. I
probably misspoke. Yeah, I think you were saying like a movie about rebelling nuns, and I said it's rebelling. My bad, but yeah, novitiate. About them rebelling.
Okay,
yeah.
So people are saying, okay, so it's from a terribly blasphemous movie. Do not watch it. It's about lesbian nuns rebelling. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, okay, but either way, I'm wondering what it was like, because you did see a complete drop off in vocations. Nuns left the convent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how much of that was because they felt like the church was no longer the church, right? Like all the reasons that they're devastated there, and how much of it was just women being caught up in the spirit of the sexual revolution and wanting to go out and free themselves. Like, I'm really wondering what it must have been like to be a cloistered nun during that time when everybody was just abandoning their vocations.
One of the most famous leaders of basically the liberal party inside of the council, a man by the name of Yves Congar. Some of you nerds out there know who I'm talking about. He was a Dominican, unfortunately, Dominican theologian who was very liberal. He famously called Vatican II the French Revolution in the church.
Yeah.
And it was the French Revolution in the church because, you see the French Revolution's 3 pillars are liberty, equality, fraternity. And what do you see? You see the introduction of religious liberty. Now, all of a sudden, civil society, which has to have its foundation on Christ, is now being told, and you see this with Catholic Spain, Catholic Italy, all religions have to be respected in civil law. You can't have Catholicism as the national religion. Italy was told, and Spain was told by the Vatican, you got to drop that from your constitutions post-council. So religious toleration, religious liberty for all. Second, equality. All of a sudden, ecumenism, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, on paper, we believe in no salvation outside the church, but what we really mean by that is like, you have to have this insane supernatural, like, gargantuan understanding of the Catholic faith, and if you deny that, then you're not going to heaven. But like pretty much everybody, we're just going to talk about all of our pros and stuff that we agree on. We'll pray together. Every authentic prayer, as Pope John Paul II says, around the world is somehow derived from the Holy Spirit. It's all good. And then finally, fraternity. Instead of the Pope now being the head of the church, all of a sudden, these dioceses and bishops, conferences have massive authority over their dioceses, to the point now where it's like, okay, Pope Francis, why haven't you condemned the German bishops? You are the vicar of Christ, the supreme pontiff of the entire church. And the Germans are just like, yeah, we're not going to listen. It doesn't really matter. Who cares?
But he's also encouraging them to continue on with what they're doing.
Exactly.
But this is
exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
But my point is, like, even if we had like, think of Benedict, right? When Benedict was there, right? He was supposedly more conservative, and he is, but it wouldn't matter, because through the introduction of collegiality, you now have this idea where the bishops have jurisdiction because of their own episcopal consecrations, as opposed to the traditional teaching that the Pope receives all jurisdiction and then gives that out as the Bishop of Rome to the world. And so all of these ideas, the Protestantization of the liturgy, like, who fasts anymore, right? Like in America, we're obligated 2 days of the entire year to fast.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, we have to get rid of meat on Fridays in Lent. But half the bishops' conferences will probably toss that out if there's like feast days on that too. And so who does that? And then I know I murdered someone, Father, but thankfully my penance is to say 2 Hail Marys. We're all good to go.
It's crazy, right? But wait, this is an interesting comment, because while you're talking, all I'm thinking is, okay, so Prepping for Heaven said she was around during that time, and I remember those times. Nuns were very confused. Now, nobody else in our audience, maybe one here or there, remembers the council, remembers the revolution. The majority of the people that watch our show are under 50, probably even under 60. You're not remembering. Like my parents are 68, and they vaguely remember the traditional mass. Like my mom ate her communion, and then the revolution came, So the funny thing is, I come up under John Paul II. My mom is very charismatic. My dad's playing at the music ministry. They're going to all these different retreats and stuff. And then Benedict comes in. Now, you don't realize, because you converted in what year? 2017, 2019, 2020, right? 2020. You come in during the pandemic. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to understand that if it wasn't for Francis, you might be a hermeneutic of continuity, Novus Ordo going
I don't
Catholic. Like,
even
there's a
know.
chance.
I don't even know, because I'll put it to you this way, and think all of the conservative denominations of Protestantism, right? So like the Calvinists and the John MacArthur's, and even like non-Calvinists, but like the fundamentals, like the Stephen Anderson crowd and stuff like that. Whenever they show photos of Catholicism, you know what they show? Assisi. They show
Yeah.
Assisi, and they show they're
Yeah.
like, this is why you guys can't become Catholic, because look, they don't even believe in their own
That's
religion.
funny. I didn't know
They
that.
do everything.
Wow.
That's why some Protestant converts, like, we don't need to be all high up on our high horse. We need to learn from the church. But to be fair, it's like, yeah, back in the day, I would have been like, look, John Paul II, he's putting a Buddha statue on top of the tabernacle. Like, I don't even believe in the Eucharist, but I mean, like, they don't either. So
See, I think, okay, but you have to realize you would have been converted through reading Aquinas and the Fathers and things like that. And a lot
I
of
don't know.
the emphasis.
All of us literally were saying, if we were going to become Catholic, I said this literally 2017. I said, if I'd ever become Catholic, which I wouldn't, but if I ever became Catholic, I'm going to become one of those Tridentine Catholics, because they're the ones who at least practice the faith. That's what we were all thinking. We're like, if
Okay.
Catholics are Catholics, they're going to be those Latin Mass weirdos.
Okay, but you don't understand maybe with Benedict. Before Benedict, I never heard of the Latin Mass.
Yeah.
You have to understand.
You're like a Spanish Mass?
I never heard of it. I would hear on Catholic Answers, people would call in about the SSPX, and I would hear they're schismatic. That would be it.
Yeah.
It would just be, it was like the society was schismatic. There was this weird group, the Fraternity of St. Peter, out there, but like, hey, where the heck are you finding them? They're nowhere.
They're
Like, they were
Nebraska
nowhere. There was like 4 of them in the whole country, you know. It was 4 fraternity parishes around the whole country. And it wasn't until Summorum Pontificum that you started hearing about the Latin Mass. So you might not have even heard Tridentine Catholics. You may not have become Catholic.
No, yeah.
It really took the Latin Mass blew up because of TNT and like Taylor Marshall, man.
Oh,
like
1000%.
he got the Latin Mass to blow up. Like, you talk about influencers. Nobody has influenced Catholicism, traditional Catholicism, more than Marshall, man. Like he got me to start. Somebody asked the other day, what was the greatest piece of advice you'd ever gotten? And I was gonna put a quippy, typical Anthony Wise ass comment about it. I was going to say something about women. And I'm like, you know what? Let me actually think about this. And it was Marshall in 2018 said, go to 4 consecutive Latin masses during Advent. Go to 4 in a row and then report back and tell me what you think. And after going to 4 in a row, it was alien to go back to the Novus Ordo. It was like, it was more strange to go back to the Novus Ordo than it was to go to that first Latin Mass, which that first Latin Mass was very strange. But to go back to the Novus Ordo was just like, what the heck, man? This is just Protestant. Like, it doesn't feel right. So it took until that point for people to start going, I'm going to go find a Latin Mass. I'm going to go find a Latin Mass. And then with the pandemic, it really blew up because they took the sacraments away. And a lot of these parishes, the Latin Mass parishes, were the only ones that were actually where priests were going out of their way to still give the sacrament. So in a way, as crazy as the Francis pontificate is, man, it's wild how God works.
Oh, 1000%. Like, I definitely credit, like, Benedict allowing Summorum Pontificum definitely helped me come into the church. Because again, as I tell people, I went to 2 or 3 Novus Ordos whenever I was first kicking the tires of Catholicism. And I walked out being like, yeah, this just doesn't seem right. It seems completely fake. Went to my first TLM and I was like, this is what I was thinking about when I was thinking about Catholicism. And that kind of just, started the journey. And that's the reality. I think, though, that you're right. Like, Taylor Marshall, he gets a bad rap. I see a lot of people, including trads, they give him a lot of crap. They give Taylor Marshall a lot of crap. And look, Taylor Marshall's not perfect. We're not perfect. No one's perfect. But at the end of the day, like, he is the one who really get the ball rolling. Like, a lot of his critics who probably go to the TLM probably go because he like influenced them at some point. But people, they act like he's like the devil or something. Like, I don't know. There's like a legitimate like Marshall phobia that's out there, like, just where people just freak out every time you mention the name Taylor Marshall in some way.
Man, but so many people are like that. It's
ridiculous.
It's so weird how we've gotten with our favorite content creators, man. Like, I've found other content creators react that way. Like,
Yeah.
if I talk to one guy, this guy will be mad at me. If I talk to this guy's going to be mad at me. I have people that get mad at me because I talk to Trent Horn. I have people that get mad at me because I talk to Tim Gordon. I got people that get mad at me because I talk to Taylor Marshall. It's a weird thing how people react with their favorite commentator. I'm just trying to talk to people I like. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything these people are saying. I just find them interesting. I listen to them and I'm like, hey, that would be a fun person to talk to. Let me talk to them.
Yeah, no, I think we've said this before, but like for y'all out there, you have to understand, and you guys can probably understand this too, like in your own context of experiences, but even if you disagree with somebody,
That's a funny line, Christian.
exactly. Like even if people you disagree with, like when you actually sit down and have a conversation with them, especially if it's in person, you realize, hey, this guy's not so bad, right? Like we may disagree, but it is what it is. And you kind of shake hands and that's all it is. Like Tim Flanders and I next week, we're going to be doing another kind of like quasi debate over trad disputed questions on Friday. I still don't know what the subject is going to be about, but it's like Tim and I don't agree on everything, but we're cool. It doesn't really matter. Like it is what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't have friendships with people and stuff. Oh man,
I think it's because of like, I think part of it's because of US politics. And also you can be anonymous across the internet. And so you're just like, okay, this guy's the one I look up to. He's kind of like the voice of the angst that I'm feeling. But if he starts talking to someone that I would never talk to, then the voice of my angst is now being silenced. And so how dare you talk to that person, if that makes sense?
It's funny how my opinion of Tim Pool has changed, man. I used to watch Tim Pool religiously. Like I
watch him pretty frequently. Yeah.
I loved Tim Pool when I in the 2018, 2019 era. Like I couldn't wait for his 10 o'clock video to drop, his 1 o'clock video. But over the past few months, I don't know if it's the news cycle or his delivery. I just don't care for him much anymore. And I've never said that publicly until yesterday. And yesterday I started making comments because Tim Pool has a live-in girlfriend who he's trying to get pregnant, who he's said publicly he's trying to get pregnant. And he'll go on and do videos about 23-year-old girls, 30-year-old women, and they wasted their 20s and they didn't get married. And it's like, you're keeping a concubine in your house, dude. Like, what do you?
Yeah. There has to be a certain amount of like consistency.
So I made that comment yesterday, and then all of a sudden last night I see Marshall is on the list. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've never said a thing publicly about this guy, and then Marshall goes on his show.
Oh, brother. You know, I'm just waiting for the like 5-hour Michael Lofton response video to that, and him being like seething that Marshall's on a major site. He'll probably review it or something, put it up at midnight. But yeah, no, I actually like Tim Pool a lot, but people always have to remember like he like classifies himself as just kind of like a traditional liberal. So he's like a 90s liberal, and there's like a lot that you can admire in that, but then there's a lot you can critique about it. So it's like I'd be friends with him. But as his friend, I'd be like, hey, yo, so you're making this point where people shouldn't act like degenerates. But if you're not going to wife her up, then stop acting like a degenerate. Because
I just don't know what we're trying to conserve if we're Tim Pool's always talking about building culture. He's like, we're going to build culture and we're going to win it back. I just don't know. I don't know what we think we're going to do. Like, I think we need to start thinking long term, man. I don't think we should be thinking about this immediate election coming up. I think we need to start thinking long term, what we're going to do. Let's play the long game. And I think the long game is to go hardcore traditional values and just say, look, you guys are all going to be spinning your wheels, and eventually you're going to come around and you're going to see we were right. And it may not work this first election cycle. It may be a little while, but I think in the long run, we're better off getting small adherents to come into our point of view, our perspective, building that out. And in 10, 15 years, that's when you have your massive political movement. If we keep trying to join ourselves to these small little things and getting a small victory here and just having another neocon get in there, and I just don't see, I just see that as a slower lurch to the inevitable, where I think we need to start thinking, how are we going to overthrow this whole thing? Like, we need a whole totally new, whether that's a political party or a totally new way of governance.
I think that it starts with, and yeah, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, everyone hit that like button, help us out a little bit here on the show. We appreciate it kindly. But I think that it starts in going back to what we were talking about earlier, which is just like people getting married. Like that's just the thing. Like when you look at my generation, we're the crop that should be getting married. And you see with all these stats coming out, guys are extremely conservative, right? They're going in the right direction, right? That's a good thing. But young women are extremely liberal.
Yeah.
And also because of the introduction of like pornography online and things like that, we saw this big survey out this last week talking about how like it's what is like 27% or something like that of Gen Z males, maybe it's more than that, I forget, but are still virgins. And while that might sound nice, it's because of the introduction of pornography. It's like they're not actually going out and seeking a wife, or if they do, right, then they just kind of get blackpilled. I made a video on my channel this week. Shout out actually to all of the viewers who went and saw that. Your guys' comments was amazing. But I basically was just talking about a lot of my own life struggles, which is trying to find a spouse. And it's like some 50 people in the comment section. Like I got like over 260 comments, and like 50 of them were other men, a lot of them in their 30s, who are like, yo, similar situation, or 40s, similar situation, right?
I had somebody reach out to me and ask for your contact. Now I'm somebody we both, that you knew of, but they were like, hey man, you think you just give me Nick's number? I want to just reach out to him, and I put you in touch with that person. It's just there's so many people that are feeling what you're feeling.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, okay, what we need to do then, and this is what, like, if you're a priest out there, you're a parish worker or something like that, here is a great idea to get your parish going. Have a night for young adults, or like a series of nights for young adults. Don't do like a cringe single mixer where it's like, all right, guys, it's singles night, because you know what's going to happen? 2 women will show up and 98 men are going to show up, right? It's going to be weird. Here's what you do though. Get a good guy, right? Good, strong, virtuous man who's plugged into this current like conversation that we're having. Get a good woman who's virtuous, plugged into the conversation that we're having, and then give talks about how to court in a righteous way, and also give apologetics on debunking feminism and then like this effeminacy in men. Do that in like a parish setting systematically over like maybe like a Friday night, every other week or so for a while, bro. That'll start to transform society, because then young women and women, they're meeting and they're like, hey, we're both here and we're both learning how not to do it.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of guys lack confidence. I think a lot of it is because everything's so online. I think where do you even meet a girl these days? You really, because I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I think you can. I don't know if there's more baggage grabbing a girl in the trad movement than there is like converting a Protestant chick, or before marriage, obviously, or grabbing a chick who goes to the Novus Ordo and getting her to come over to tradition. I don't know where I'm too old now, so I don't know. I only know my own experience, and
everyone just clip the phrase "I'm too old" and just leave it.
I am though.
I like Capara's comment. Yeah, I started getting into Thomism just to rizz up the ladies. Yeah, so true. Because we all know there's nothing more seductively attractive to women than a good conversation on ensoulment at 2 a.m. But yeah, no, I think going to the secular world, that's a horrible idea, I think, just in the long run, because unless the person's like repentant, right? They're coming in the door and they see the problems of the world. Maybe that's one thing. But I would just say it's probably a terrible idea, because in reality, what happens is they have so much secular baggage, and because of all the divorces and probably how they're treating their father, they're carrying all that baggage in the same way. And again, I'm not saying this to trash people who go to the Novus Ordo, but there's a fair amount of people so I go to a diocesan parish, right? Oftentimes when I coming in for the TLM, there's a bunch of people from the Novus Ordo leaving. All of us coming in, we're all dressed suits and ties, chapel veils. They're all leaving, mini skirts, like really immodest stuff.
I think you can swing one of those chicks in the mini skirts to.
But see, that's the thing. Here's the real rational question, though. Should the chick in the miniskirt be attractive to a person who's pursuing virtue? Because that's the thing. Like, if you ask the Lord, like all of the traditional ascetical manuals tell you to, give me a detestation of degeneracy and impurity. It's not that you hate that person, but then when you see that person acting on that manner, like, it's not the part of you that's good that's being drawn into that, right? It should rather be something else that's pulling you in. It should be, I'm not saying you shouldn't see you're physically attractive, right? That's a given. You should. But for me, what makes a marriage last should be, wow, she's pursuing virtue. And if you don't believe me, believe King Solomon in the book of Proverbs 31, where he says, beauty is deceitful, beauty is vain, etc. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised.
Yeah, I get all that, but I also think that God converts the heart, and I think that you, if you are living a virtuous life, I think that will be like, sanctity is attractive, right? So if you're living a virtuous life, I think it would inspire a woman to want to be attractive to you, and if she knows that to be attractive to you, she needs to be virtuous. Like I just think because the pool is so tainted at this point, that you might have to look outside the boundaries of.
Yeah, no, and I'm not actually disagreeing with you, because it's like I told people, my one and only trad girlfriend that I ever had, right? Like, check this out, y'all. She was a Thomist, a philosophy major, right? Wore skirts and
You know
dresses.
what that sounds like to me? Annoying.
Annoying. Yeah, well, there's some truth to that. We all like to pretend we know better. But she was a Thomish, wore skirts and dresses, right? Philosopher major. She went to the TLM, right? Very conservative in her politics, right? It was like my dream girl, right? I actually like fell head over heels, thought I was going to get married.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Like, it's the one and
wow.
only time where I'm like, wow, maybe I actually like fell in love. I don't know. And what did she do? She broke up with me, didn't tell me why. And I found out 9 months later that she was seeing a 40-year-old plus man as a 21-year-old,
Wow.
right? And she was lying to me and lying basically to a bunch of other people, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, my point with that is just because she's trad and goes to the TLM, I've learned my lesson there.
Yeah.
Like, you got to.
Let me ask you something. Do you want a woman who's going to mentally stimulate you, and you're going to be able to have conversations about Thomism with her and things like that? Like, is that what you're looking for?
Not necessarily. Like, I don't want someone who doesn't, understand anything, right? But I don't necessarily, if there is a woman out there who can be somewhat of a, not necessarily intellectual equal, but, up there, right? She can have those more heady conversations.
Oh, we know there can't be an intellectual equal.
I was just like, that's cool. Like, that'd be more preferred, that where she has her own mind, she's thinking, etc., and we can have these discussions. But I recognize that when you go to a Thomistic circle, right, it's 9-to-1 women, and the only women there are professors, and they're old. And so it's just not going to happen. Unless you guys know, if you guys know like a Thomistic
this
chick
is
out
why
there.
I say it, because I think, well, so it looks like this is going to be your area of work, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be where your studies are going towards, things like that. You might want to have a separation of work and home. And I know I say it jokingly, but I kind of like my wife doesn't have a clue what's going on in the world. Now, I joke around and I say, oh, you want a woman that's uninformed. Like, the less informed, the better. That's not a knock to my wife. My wife doesn't pay attention to current events, and she has a peace about her because of it. She doesn't know the drama going on in the church. She doesn't know. She couldn't name our vice president. Like, she doesn't know AOC and Kamala Harris. She doesn't know any of that.
That sounds like a nice world, bro. That's
that's what I mean, right? So, well, you know who AOC is? No, she's down here. Who's AOC? Who's AOC? Shut up, is what she told me. Oh, go upstairs. I'm talking behind your back. So there's a piece about that of not knowing the mayhem going on in the world. So she's probably mad at me.
Put something in
She's the one time she comes downstairs, I'm telling everybody she's
uninformed. Poor Anthony, y'all. Everyone hit that like button for Anthony. He needs the likes. Support him on local so he can afford a divorce attorney.
Especially because, like, this is what I'm doing, right? Like, we're discussing all the things going on in the world. I'm at work all day listening to all these guys talk about this stuff at work. So to come home and my wife is just talking about like what's going on with my kids and things like that. Like, it really is a nice break. That's why I say it. You might not want to go to get that highly intellectual trad girl.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You might want to find like a ditz or something. You
Yeah,
know?
it's like Geoseo. I don't know how you pronounce your name, but it said like she's a 10, but she's a Molinist. Oh, brother, that's actually extremely funny. And then to answer Michelle McLean's question, I am 26, and if people want to hit me up, go to Instagram. They can find me under my name or the Traditional Thomist.
Man, all right. So we should talk about what we put in the title, which was that Apple commercial. Did you see that Apple commercial?
I didn't actually. No, I was kind of confused.
It's kind of interesting. So, yeah, we'll wrap up with this. This will be our last segment. Everybody, it's funny. Everybody's like, DM Nick, DM Nick. Nick gets a lot of DMs, guys.
Bro, you know who I get? I get like a lot of DMs from like older people who are just like encouraging me, which is great, right? But I've looked at my like if you guys don't know, in YouTube, you can check out your analytics on your viewers. You can see how old they are, roughly how like YouTube's estimating like where they're from, etc., and their gender. I think my female audience for like my age is like 0.3% of my audience or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, it's the 0.3% of girls out there who are like, yeah, systematic takedown of the Novus Ordo is attractive. Let's go.
Wait, real quick on Molly's point here. So Molly, but it's not his job, right? It's his hobby. So of course he wants his wife to enjoy the hobby that he has, right? So and there's a very big difference in knowing the faith and understanding the faith and being a Thomist, you know what I mean? So like this is absolutely important. Like my wife understands the concepts of the faith, things like that, but I don't think I'd sit and read, like Aquinas with her. It's just not something that I would do with her. I wouldn't even, discuss Dostoevsky with her or something. It's something I would do on my own. But I understand that, and every couple's different also. It's like, I'm just throwing an idea or two at Nick just to maybe think outside the box is all I'm saying.
It's fair. I'm not looking for someone who's going to be just like an absolute, walking encyclopedia of Thomistic knowledge or something like that. I think just nowadays, more or less where I am is, there's just so much, I would say, unrealistic expectations that girls are seeking in guys, and perhaps vice versa, etc. But it's caused people to be very uncommittal, right? And liking to keep their options open. And so therefore, like, all I'm looking for is just a woman who wants to live like a truly Christian marriage and go forward from there, right? And obviously someone who I would find attractive, etc. So it's like I was joking with Anthony and Rob, the other guy, for you guys who don't know, I have had some people out there try to recommend to me somebody like that they know, etc., etc., and I've always found that they're either like borderline illegal in their age. They're like 17. I'm like, all right, that's the first thing, or they're like anorexic, like super
yeah, dude,
skinny.
you have to understand that these are mothers or grandmothers who have a daughter or a granddaughter who they're like, there's no good men out there. Oh my gosh, we found a good man. Like, stand. And
I think it's more dudes now. Like, this actually, it's all these dudes. I actually have a good family friend recently who was like, father, right, good guy, who's just like, hey, how about you think about courting my daughter? And my first question to him was like, she's not even like, she's going to prom next week, right? I'm almost 26 years old.
Yeah,
like,
right.
she's
That's
too young. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of you got to realize a lot of dads want their daughter to marry a good man. It is a crazy time. So
yeah.
All right, let's do the Apple video and then we'll wrap it up. It's Friday night. We won't keep everybody here all night. And then let me just see something. I'm kind of curious if you guys want us to line up more guests, or if you got, like, I kind of like these shows where it's just me and Nick and Rob. I kind of like them the best. Like, we just get to kind of shoot the breeze, and we don't have to. When I have guests on, like, I'll bring some of our return guests back on just so we could check in on how everybody's doing and stuff. But I haven't been like pursuing new guests lately. So I don't know what people want me to do. You guys just leave comments and let me know if you guys want me to, if there's anybody you want me to try and reach out to and get on, or if you prefer these shows where it's just, me, Rob, and Nick, or what you guys want. So, all right, let's do the Apple commercial and then we'll get into why everybody's so upset about it. Let's see.
Sometimes when I'm down all alone, all I need is you.
Probably going to get a copyright strike for the music, right? Probably going to get a copyright strike for that music.
Well, it is faint enough that you actually might get away from it. This is an interesting commercial. So it's like basically pressure's destroying all music.
Maybe I should turn the music off. Like, you guys don't need that song, right?
Yeah, we don't need the song. Like,
you don't need the song. So I'll just play the video. Let's see.
Dang. Dang.
Powerful iPad ever. It's also the thinnest. All I ever need is you.
So, why do you think everybody's mad at that commercial? Because when I saw it, I didn't get it at first. I was like, why is everybody, like, people are mad about this? It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little puzzled. There's only two things that came to mind. Like, one, like, maybe one could walk away from the commercial with the idea that like an iPad is greater, like technology and iPad entertainment is greater than all like pursuit of music or like other things like pleasure, etc. This is interesting. What's up, y'all? So that could be a possibility. Or the other reality is it could be that with the rainbow stuff, that it's kind of like an innuendo of homosexuality. I don't know. It's a little bit weird. So did Anthony just leave? This might be my first official takeover stream. I've actually never done a stream before in the context of like actually just streaming myself. So
I'm so sorry, Nick.
Okay, I was like, I guess this is my
I'm so sorry. I clicked something and I freaking just bailed out on myself here.
I kept going. Okay, so I'll tell you what I was thinking. Basically, there's only like one or two things that came to mind. Like, number one, like either it's saying that all creativity, etc., just needs to be like destroyed and like capitulated to the whims of just entertainment, or B, because there's this rainbow and we're coming up on June, maybe there's some like homo references there. I don't know. That could just because
it was the creative. It was like all the things of human creativity were stuffed inside this thing and just crushed down. So what I was trying to do was open Twitter, and I actually wound up canceling myself out. So what a lot of people, these are some of the responses that people are saying. 40 years ago, Apple released the 84 commercial as a bold statement against the dystopian future. Now you guys are the dystopian future. Congratulations.
Yes.
Everyone is complaining, but I think it's good when the villain goes mask off and reveals his evil plan. I'm not sure wanton destruction of all the good and beautiful things in the world is really the vibe we're going for. Because they really did take music and video games, like all the things that we've accomplished as people and creatives, and they just crushed it. But I don't know if they were going for that or we're compacting all creativity into this little device.
I feel like it's probably that, because think about it. It's like they're trying to sell you that. And so they're like, hey, y'all, TV, music, entertainment, quality, pleasure, it's all right here. That's all you need.
So there is like Tim Cook released an apology, and we don't have to read the article and stuff, but I just thought it was interesting.
He released an apology because of that commercial.
They actually which to me, why? I watched the commercial and I'm like, is there nothing these people won't apologize for?
That's what I'm saying. So like, ridiculous. Who cares? Like, I may disagree with it, but like, who cares?
It's just crazy what people get offended by these days, right?
That's a beta move, bro. Like, why is he capitulating?
Because everybody capitulates now, right? Everybody
Yeah.
just jumps to the apology right away and stuff. It's just it is pretty wild how
It makes it seem so insincere though, because it's like, all right, bro, why are you really like apologizing? Because you want like customer sales. You don't actually care.
it's worse than that. He's apologizing because some anonymous guy on Twitter complained.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you have to think about how many news articles these days are written because somebody with 7 followers on Twitter made a comment, and they take it seriously, and they'll be like, Twitter respondents were very upset with the new Apple commercial, and they'll write articles on this stuff. It's so bizarre.
Can you picture how like that like setup manager probably feels? He's like, bro, we finally got this entire thing done. It looks pretty epic commercial, great editing. Man, some guy with 7 Twitter followers just complained.
It
Our boss had
happens
to
all
get rid of
the
it.
time.
Like, I'd be like, bro, I need a different boss. This guy sucks.
I would just block the guy with 7 followers. It's like, this guy's causing trouble. Just block him so he can't see our stuff anymore.
That's so lame. It is kind of interesting though, because like, have you, Anthony, like, have you ever made your way down to Texas and toward the NASA space station?
I have not.
Oh, bro. Okay, so when you come to Texas, definitely check out the NASA space station. It's worth your time. Anyway, I don't know if you believe in the moon landing or not, right? But let's just say you do, right? Let's just say you do for sake's story, right? When you go into the room where they launched the mission from, right, on the left-hand side of the wall is this massive computer, right? Absolutely big. It's the entire wall. And the tour guide, he's like, all right, to give you an idea of just how primitive this is, if you were to do this entire computer and compare it to something today, basically it would be a folder on an iPhone that could hold 4 photos. That's about how memory technology based it had in this massive computer, right?
Yeah.
And yet your iPhone has, you know, if you will, gargantuan amounts of
Like 1,000 times the computing power of that
Exactly.
entire room at
in NASA.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, but so then it's like, okay, well, that's kind of, I think, somewhat of a subliminal message, but in the marketing sense. So it's just like, yeah, why buy CDs? Why buy, you know, if you want to go real old school, like, you know, vinyl, or why get a VHS tape? Why get a DVD? Why get something online whenever you can just have every single thing on your person, in your phone, or in an iPad? It's brilliant marketing, I think, actually. It just makes things sad because then people aren't actually like playing music. They're not actually reading like physical books anymore. And so they're becoming less incarnational, and they have a larger relationship with this machine, you know, with a little, you know, rectangle.
I will say that GarageBand is a pretty cool app though.
It is. That's an old app though. That's like,
yeah,
that's
I still use it though. Like I'll use it just to I mean, I don't use it regularly, but I'll make a beat once in a while just to play around with. So, yeah.
All right, let's go. So
Um,
everyone should just clip that and then string it together with "I'm old," and that's that.
I'm old. I make beats. Man, everyone's gonna change their tune when the solar flare hits tonight. All right, this was a different one, man. We're gonna have to change the title and the thumbnail on it. I'm gonna put Rob to work because he's leaving tomorrow. He's going. He's gonna be doing a lot of things with the kids this summer. His kids are getting older now, and they're finally able to like really start enjoying stuff. So I'm happy for them. All right, so Nick, you free Tuesday?
Oh, this next Tuesday, yeah, bro.
Nice.
I'm still free for a while.
Anthony, the SoundCloud rapper. All right, yeah. So as long as Nick's around, he'll still be joining us. I think on the 17th that Marian Apparition document drops.
Oh yeah.
So we'll have to make sure we get to talk about that, and we'll see what the news week brings next week, and we will discuss it as it comes along, man. All right, Nick, thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, no worries.
At least I can count on one of my partners over here. The other one just hanging out with his kids. Rob. Hanging out with his kids. What kind of guy puts his kids before the show?
I don't even have kids, but if I did, I put the show first.
Exactly. All right, guys, hit like, subscribe, go join our locals. I'm not even sure I have. Let me see if I can find a video or a song to take us out. Hang on. This is going to be, let me see. Which one? I don't even know, man. I don't, what did Rob do with everything? I don't know. Can we go out with this?
I'm not gay no more. I am delivered.
That's the only one I have. All right. You guys are getting the intro for an outro. Let's see.
Unite the clans. Enoch. Let's go. Yo. Take me back to my reversion. Unite the clans. I give thanks to each person. It's that same holy water that we immerse in. It's that same tradition that we all each versed in. United we stand and divided they win. They ignited.